Welcome to Mental Stillness. My name is Derek, and I'm excited that somehow you stumbled across this podcast. One of my goals when starting this podcast was to bring mental health conversations into leadership circles. As I think about people to bring onto this podcast that I feel like can be helpful for you in your leadership journey, William Salvi is someone that I came across fairly recently, but quickly threw myself into the different content that he's putting out there. Here in a moment, you're going to hear about the specifics of what he does with his company, Executive House. But I came across his work titled The CEO Series on YouTube, and he sits down with various CEOs and or executives from organizations like Goodyear, Hyundai, Build-A-Bear, Culver's, and on and on. And so I really want to encourage you to check out their work. It's not only top-notch conversations, but it's also top-notch production value. I would even encourage you to press pause right now, go to YouTube, type in the CEO Series or Executive House, and check out some of their episodes, and then return to this conversation that I had with William. I really love his approach to having these conversations with these leaders that we can all learn from, and at times even get a little bit of a peek behind the curtain into the life of these executives.
All right, so my name is William Salvi. I'm the co-founder of Executive House and the co-founder of Salvi Media. My primary responsibility is an executive producer and host with Executive House. And Executive House is a media brand that essentially tells executive stories. Our flagship show is the CEO Series. We also have a show called the Tech Series. The CEO Series focuses on CEOs of a wide variety of companies, Fortune 500, startups, mid-market companies. And essentially what we want to do is talk to business leaders at very credible companies, talk to them about their roles, their experiences, the stories that they have, and get to know them on a different side that we typically don't see. And when I say business leaders, I'm talking about, like, these are fairly prominent companies, public companies, brands that, you and I would know. We were just talking about Culver's. We've interviewed the CEO of Culver's. So I host that show. We've done about 65 episodes now. We've won an Emmy for the show, and it's great. We love doing it. And that's my quick elevator pitch, Derek. So if you could help me fill in the rest, that would be great.
That's incredible. And what I will say is, as a fan of the show, now I know what you like on your cheeseburger too. You're pretty basic and plain.
Yeah.
So
when I go to a cheeseburger place, it is just, unless they have a special sauce or something, then I want to try their ingredients.
Give me the base level. If it passes that, I may add a topping here or there.
Right? Yeah, right. Give me the burger. Otherwise, I'm doing just cheese and the burger.
No, and I know we'll talk more about your work and with Executive House, and I would love, like, just from your interest in leadership, how did you kind of get into this work?
So my brother Chris and I, as I said, my brother Chris runs our agency. It's an executive communications agency. Salvi Media is the name of the agency. Typically, we create executive content for internal purposes, for thought leadership, for HR benefits, for employee engagement. That's what we've been doing for about 8 years now. When we would promote all this stuff, it wasn't the most interesting thing to quote unquote promote on LinkedIn or Instagram. It was just like content about some company, and it was an executive talking to their employees. It's very irrelevant for like a random audience. So when we were promoted, we'd be like, this isn't the best thing to promote. So my brother Chris had the idea of, like, let's interview CEOs. And so we knew the CEO of Wintrust. This was about 5 years ago. Wintrust is a big regional bank here in Chicago in the Midwest. They're about $1 billion bank. They're a public company, very legitimate brand in the Midwest. And they sponsor the Cubs, the White Sox, the Bulls. Like, they're very prominent within the Chicagoland community. And we interviewed him. His name is Ed Waymer. And he immediately introduced us to Tom Ricketts, who owns the Chicago Cubs, Jerry Reinsdorf, who owns the Chicago Bulls and White Sox, Greg Brown of Motorola, and Pat Gallagher of Gallagher. And those last two are Fortune 500 CEOs. And they all said yes to doing the interview. So right before COVID, we filmed about 6 total episodes. We really enjoyed it. We enjoyed meeting them. We created like a 5 to 6 minute video. It was very basic leadership stuff. Hey, what's your leadership style? What's the best thing, or what's the things you look for when hiring? What do you look for when inquiring a company? Uh, and then COVID hit, and then we kind of took a break, and we just wanted to continue to create more original content. And so we leaned into the CEO series. Specifically, it was Chicago only at first. We called it Chicago CEOs. And then the quality and the caliber of company kept staying high. It kept staying in, like, we were always getting large companies, big brands, specifically for Chicagoland area. And then we just started to really focus on the show. We started to see that people were interested in it. They liked the guests that we were getting. They liked the content generally. And we wanted to just keep improving it and making it better. And honestly, we just kept pounding the pavement on asking people to be on the show. We were very strict with who we allowed on the show because it is an in-person filming. It's on camera. It's very visual.
High quality.
It's on our yeah, it's high quality. So like I think the teams that we work with are very happy about that. And yeah, we just kept, I mean, we reached out to probably like 3,000 companies, Derek. All the way from Apple and Meta to have like Mark Zuckerberg and Tim Cook be on the show, all the way down to a local liquor store here in Chicago that like only Chicagoans would know. And then more and more kept saying yes because of the past guests that we've had, and the quality was getting better. And now it's mostly inbound for all of our guests. And again, I mean, the quality of the guests we're very strict with. It keeps getting better and better. We just did Gary V. We just did Hyundai, which is by far the biggest company that we've filmed. I am proud to say too that we get to ask them whatever we want. They don't get edits on our show. They don't pay to be on the show. It's a true interview. We're not CNBC or Bloomberg, so we're not necessarily talking about like their market outlook or what, those types of questions. It is about leadership and it's about their stories. But at the same time, when you talk to Hyundai, it does get into more serious macro topics like tariffs or, investing in the US. So it's gotten into a cool realm too, where we're talking to CEOs about pretty legitimate things. So how it started, that's how it started. We reached out to the CEO of Wintrust, and he was kind enough to introduce us to very legitimate people, and they all said yes, and that helped us get more guests.
When people hear of a CEO, right, especially if you haven't really been in those rooms or been in those spaces with CEOs, you can kind of get this idea of just callous, hard, don't show their emotions, just driven, and some of those qualities, absolutely. But the other side of CEOs, I think you all do a great job of highlighting just the humanity piece, and I think that's a big draw. I know it's going to be a big draw for my audience. It's just like, man, these are people. These are people who they maybe didn't set out to be the CEO of Goodyear 20 years ago, and I don't know. Have you been kind of shocked at where some of these conversations have gone with some of these CEOs?
Absolutely. So I think all of us have to your point, have a picture in our heads about what a CEO is and how they look and how they dress, how they act. They're in the boardroom. They're all about profits. They're all about shareholder value. Uh, they're all about performance. You can't really approach them. No one really knows them. They're always busy. Like that's kind of like everyone's generalized picture of a CEO. But I would say like the you know, top 100 CEOs that we see regularly on those major publications or channels like CNBC or Bloomberg tend to paint that picture. And there are quite literally thousands of business leaders at very influential companies and very prominent and well-performing companies and big companies that no one really hears from, no one really cares about. They don't see them on these channels. They don't see them in interviews because they are more laid back. They're more low key. They're not utilizing media for the wrong reasons. And that is one of the main drivers of our show, is to showcase a lot of these people. No one knows about the CEO of Culver's, right? No one knows about their ethos and their values and what they care about. But you should, because it's like that's a company that we should look up to. Because yes, they're huge. Yes, they're in 26 states. They have over 1,000 locations, but at the same time, they do things the right way. They hire from within. They treat their employees right. They do things with integrity. Their quality of their, you can call them fast food, but the quality of their fast food versus Burger King, McDonald's, or Wendy's is far superior, in my opinion. And that's
We
the type of
we can
company
we
that
can
should
call it quick
be
service, right?
right. Quick service, yeah. Yeah, what do they call it? Fast casual. That's the marketing people's nice spin on fast food. But you get the point is if we're gonna have fast food in the world, do we want that type of company or do we want the one that tries to skim on the beef and it's not necessarily the best for consumption and it's all about profits? Like which one do you want in your society? I want a Culver's if we're gonna have that. So those are the types of people we interview. I still want to get the heavy hitters that we all know, but um, there are they are people. There's CEOs that dress in a suit every day and they are in the boardroom and they only care about shareholder value. And then there's the CEOs that are all about work-life balance and they're a little bit more on the hippie side and they are about a different type of culture that they want. And both CEOs can succeed. And it's a really important aspect, I think, of leadership and examining leadership
Yeah, and I think you
specifically.
I think you nailed it there, where it's like it's really important for us to recognize just how leaders come in a lot of different shapes and sizes, in different backgrounds, and leadership is influence, and you're getting to talk to people who are influencing all these some major players in different industries, and so think through some of the interviews that you've had. Has there been any like I'm very much a believer culture is always felt, and so when you show up on the premise, kind of go through any of these organizations and these CEOs you've interviewed where, and you showed up and you're like, wow, they've got culture nailed down.
That's a great question. So yeah, you do get a sense of the vibe of the place because we're there for about 5 hours. We obviously can't do some big elaborate questionnaire with all their employees to see how they truly feel, but at the same time, you get a sense of how everything is. You get a sense for the culture when the CEO walks in and how the employees around are treated by the CEO or how they interact with one another. I would say to answer your question, like uh, we were just at Gary V's office, and he's a social influencer. He's got like 12 million followers. Some people know Gary V, but others just like are wondering who he is. But he's got a very legit business. He's got like 2,000 employees. He's not just a social media influencer. I think he does like his agency, Vayner Media, does about 300 million in revenue. They work with a lot of the top brands. They're a marketing and advertising business, and their culture was very much that world, like run and gun, move fast, uh, lean into social. It was taking on the identity of Gary V and kind of filtering on down. And on top of that, like you can tell they're an open-minded group. They like that fast-paced culture. They don't mind that it's a little messier and not quote unquote corporate. And then you walk into a place like Hyundai and everything is, this is a big conglomerate organization. I think they're the number 3 car producer in the world. And, you know, their office is massive. It's clean. It's quite literally like sterile. Everyone was very nice, but it's far more corporate and process and very the utmost professionalism and all that. So you get a sense very quickly, and each one has its own little vibe and world. But I would just say, generally speaking, as the company size and scale gets bigger, it generally gets a little more buttoned up, uh, a little tighter of processes, you can tell, and a little bit more. It's more rare to see a CEO interacting with employees the way you would see a smaller company CEO interact with all their employees, where it's very personal. And like the Goodyear Tire CEO had like 10 people walk out with him to the interview. Whereas like Dude Wipes, we did the Dude Wipes CEO. It was just him in the interview. So just a quick little difference there, where the comms team is kind of like surrounding this guy versus Dude Wipes. He's by himself. He's fully comfortable to do the interview. And that says a little bit about the culture right then and there.
It's interesting how organizations do take on the personality of the leadership, and
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a threshold to where that you get so big, it's just it has to be buttoned up. I mean,
Right.
there's no other way probably around it. But yeah, what stands out when you kind of go through the Rolodex of where you've been, who you've talked to, any kind of major leadership lessons stand out for our audience?
I'm a big authenticity person. I just find it to be shocking that you would walk into your job day in and day out and not be yourself. And I'm not saying you share your darkest, deepest secrets with your colleagues or with professional people in your world, but you have to be yourself. And I fear that there are at those larger companies that we just mentioned, it's hard for the CEO, understandably so, to fully be themselves because of a lot of different reasons. So I just mentioned Dude Wipes and Sean Riley is the CEO. He's very much himself. He's not going to give you some version that he's expecting to give to you and I'm expecting from him. He's just going to give me him. And then you get the CEO of Goodyear Tire, where I think he's a nice guy in person, and there was nothing wrong with our interaction, and I had a pleasant time. But you can tell maybe that person is putting on a bit more of that CEO face on because the pressures of Goodyear Tire and that guy's role, I would argue, I don't know if the pressures are greater than the Dude Wipes guy, but it's just they're different. They're very different. You have a board that's expecting literal shareholder value to go up if you're the Goodyear Tire CEO, and that's kind of all they're looking for. Like they're not as entrenched into the growth of the company as Sean Riley is. That is his baby. He started it. He's been at it for 10 plus years. The Goodyear Tire CEO worked at 4 different major organizations before becoming the CEO of Goodyear, and now it's his job uh, to probably drive sales for the company to become number 1 in tires because I think they're now number 3. So I guess my point is if they're not authentic and they're putting on a face, I can see that being a problem for their mental health in the future because it's exhausting to put on a face day in and day out. It's exhausting for the culture to do that. So we just talked about the culture trickling down from leadership. So if your leader and other executives are putting on this face, what does that mean for the people that they're managing and so on and so forth? It keeps going down. So uh, I think authenticity is the biggest thing that I've noticed. I think the CEOs that are themselves, that are comfortable with themselves, it typically shows me that they're performing to a point where they're confident and they can be themselves. We've had CEOs that were in the role for 1 year. You can tell that they're walking on eggshells based on what they say because they're not fully confident in what they've done yet. So they're kind of sticking to the talking points and not having as open of a dialogue as I think they should. I'll give you a quick example. So we interviewed a company that had just laid off about 600 people. 600 people. That's a lot of people. It's a tough decision to make. It's inherently a non-human decision because, like, how could you make a layoff of 600 people? It's a heaviness of the role that most people don't understand. Like, you have to make that decision. Um, we asked about it in the interview. What was it like to, let go of 600 people? An honest, authentic answer while being a CEO of a big company. This was a big public company. An honest, authentic answer to that question, what was it like to lay off 600 people, would be it sucked. It was terrible. I wish I hired 600 people versus fired. But if I don't fire 600 people in 6 to 12 to 18 months time, I may have to fire 5,000 people because we kept them on. The company stayed too bloated, whatever, and the performance stayed poor. And so I had to fire more because I didn't make that very tough decision to fire 600 at this time. But, and then you give your positive spin on it. They gave us an answer that was very like, oh, well, we got to stick to the KPIs and it's like just a non-human answer. And I think to myself, wow, this is so inauthentic. It's not something that if I was an employee and my friends were just let go, I would be very disappointed in that answer. It doesn't garner trust. Be real to your people. Be real to the people that you're employing. Be real to your customers. Be real to your shareholders. It will produce dividends. So being authentic can do wonders for your culture, can do wonders for performance. Gallup just came out with a poll, Gallup in 2024. I believe it's like 22% of employees are engaged at work. That's terrible. You're going to work every day and you're not engaged. It's an awful stat. It leads to less profits. It leads to a less healthy culture. I mean, and the more authentic that leadership is, I think the more engaged, you'll have more engaged employees. They'll be more eager to work. They'll be more eager to collaborate. They'll have happier customers. I mean, it will lead to better things. So again, I'm not saying share your deepest, darkest secrets, but I'm a big authenticity person, and leaders, I think, are realizing it a little late that you can be a person. You can give an opinion. It's okay. You should go on media and talk about your personal story. It will help filter culture for you on who wants to work for you or who doesn't. So that's one thing I've noticed. You don't get it all the time with CEOs. In fact, it's most of the time you don't get it with CEOs. You got to try to pull it out of them. But I think we've featured a lot of like pretty authentic people and decent people as well.
I say this a lot. I've highlighted this with other people because vulnerability always shows up when people are trying to navigate the mental health and leadership space. It's like
Hmm.
because vulnerability forces us to take inventory. As a leader, how do I show people that I'm flesh and blood? It's like nobody wants to follow someone that doesn't come across as as human, like you said before. Like,
Right.
how do I demonstrate and model and communicate and lead and make decisions in a way to where I do show that I am flesh and blood. That's one side of it, but the other side, but I don't want to lead, I don't want to talk, I don't want to make decisions that communicates that I'm bleeding out. So it's like, how do I find that sweet spot between showing that I'm flesh and blood, but not that I'm bleeding out? And like, I feel like that is the sweet spot for leaders and organizations. It's like, and you mentioned these polls and engagement, and so much of engagement year over year, when people are critiquing their people leader, time and time and again, year over year across different continents, one of the big takeaways is I need to see more vulnerability from my people leader. And I think it's a mentality shift because for so long it's been, I think, taught and demonstrated and modeled like leave home at home, work at work, your humanity stays there, your emotions stay there. But it's like, but then we want people to show up and be invested and bought into the organization and take it personal, take their job personal. Well, you told me
Right.
not to bring myself to work. So how do I reconcile bringing the fullness of who I am to work and take it personal if I have to leave me at home kind of thing. So I don't know if you have any thoughts into that, but just some observations.
Yeah, I mean, we've observed every one of our interviews in a similar fashion, and it's clear that founders of these companies that have turned into CEOs are far more comfortable with being themselves. They're far more willing to share opinions. They're far more willing uh, to provide industry insights, like a hot take, if you will, predictions. They're more willing to be honest about some of the shortfalls that they've had. When you get to those bigger public companies and newer CEOs, I realize some of them are VPs. They have a very powerful board behind them, or they have a chairman that's truly running the show. If it's a not a global CEO, we've done a couple CEOs that are like the CEO of North America of a very big company. They ultimately have a global CEO to report to. So, and if they're newer in their role, I mentioned it in the last on the last question, they're typically less willing to, depends on the personality, but typically from my experiences, they're less willing to provide that, strong opinion or provide that prediction on this industry. They're much more diplomatic in all their answers. They're not going to quite fully answer a question about layoffs or that quote unquote tough question. If you keep pressing them, they want to stick to their guns. And so, but then there's nuance to that too, because there's plenty of CEOs at public companies with boards, with chairmen that are performing very well and have been there for a long time, that now they've kind of taken the reins and now they're acting a little bit more entrepreneurial, a little bit more like a founder where they have that confidence. So we've noticed that you see a little bit more of it in a $1 billion public company more than you do at a startup that just raised $100 million. They're much more, they're building the plane while they're flying it. It's a bit of more of a fast-paced environment and fun culture. And then you get to the corporate environments where they are putting on that face and they're being less vulnerable. They're showing a little bit less of their humanity. And in 2025 and beyond, and how digital media and digital content is going, CEOs are losing value by not showcasing more of their human side, period. Like, you need to show more of who you are. You do need to have those opinions. It's okay if people don't like your opinions. You're not going to get crucified for it online. And even if you do, it's stupid noise online. Don't worry about it. Again, don't share your deepest, darkest secrets. That's not what I'm saying. And I'm not saying to comment on the hottest political, the most intense political discussion. That's not my point either. It's just they think they need to be something. They think they need to put on a face. And that's not what leadership is. Leadership is about setting a vision and uh, taking care of the people that you're leading, guiding them in the best way that you can, doing things with integrity. That's what leadership's about. It is about performance too. Like, it's not just about singing Kumbaya and saying everything's nice. You have to perform to be a leader. And you have to make tough decisions as a leader too. And I think most rational people understand that you need to make tough decisions. So I find it shocking that if you do have to do a mass layoff, or if you did make a wrong decision that caused pain in your company, I find it shocking that someone won't just admit to it and talk about it openly, because it creates more trust. It creates that vulnerability to say, I messed up that decision, or yeah, I had to fire those 600 people. I really didn't want to do that. It was difficult. But at the end of the day, I do have sympathy for them, because they do have a lot of pressure, and the pressures are real. Say if you're a public company and the stock price isn't doing well, like, that's you're going to get fired if it lasts for, 2 years. A CEO that we had on here, this Emmy right here behind in the screen, that CEO was fired. That was on a CEO series episode. That CEO was just fired because the stock price was not doing well. And he was there for 3 or 4 years. So it's a quick turnaround. And the tenure for CEOs, I believe, in Fortune 500 companies is at like a 3.5-year mark. And I think it's at the lowest mark it's been in quite a bit, because it's an exhausting job and the pressures are real. And I truly don't think that the environment that we're in now, specifically talking about public companies and the way the market moves, the environment we're in now really does require fast results, which creates the job of a CEO a little harder for a public company. They quite literally a lot of companies monitor quarter by quarter how they're doing. And that's tough if you're trying to put in a long-term vision for a company that will take some time to change. So I'm kind of rambling now, but leaders need to be more vulnerable. They need to showcase who they are as people. It will help guide what your culture is going forward. It will help garner trust within your organization with your customers. It will show who you are. And younger people want that. Younger people expect it out of you. They want you to talk about some social things that are going on in the world. They want you to comment on that hot political topic sometimes. They want to know who they're working for. Otherwise, they're going to be pissed at you.
Yeah, they're gonna feel like you're disconnected from their world. It's
Yeah.
like, how can you not be thinking about this or have an opinion on this, whatever it is, even if it's different than mine? It's interesting. One of the episodes I've seen with Executive House was with Coach Kelly, right? And
Yeah.
so, talk a little bit about your journey playing football at Notre Dame. I think you walked on, right? And then
Yep.
that whole process, and then the full circle moment of then sitting down and interviewing Coach Kelly is just a really interesting dynamic.
Yeah. So I walked on to the Notre Dame football team my junior year. My brother Chris was a walk-on too. He transferred from Butler. He was a great football player, and he transferred from Butler, walked on to Notre Dame. And so I played intramural football at Notre Dame at the time. They had full tackle intramural football. I kind of dominated that. Humble brag right there, even though it's really not cool at all because it's intramural football. But I kind of dominated that. It's in pads and it's cool, and there's some good players on there. And so my brother Chris and some of the other football walk-ons were like, "Hey, you should walk on." Like, yeah, I think you could. And so I was like, "All right, I'm going to do it." I walked on, and that was my first like foray into strong leadership in a pretty like competitive environment. I saw my brother Chris's leadership. I really looked up to him because he was like a leader of the special teams, a leader of the walk-ons. He got a scholarship. He was a great player. And I saw his leadership and his toughness and just how he kind of approached his process. And then on top of that, like all the coaches and so many players that are so professional in what they do day in and day out, and they're like 21 years old. And then the coaches are really only focused on football. Like that's all they care about. And playing for Coach Kelly, I mean, he ran a very professional organization, is how I would call it. Like he is a great coach, and he knows how to create like a winning team. He knows the formula of being a coach for a winning football team. And I would actually argue that Coach Kelly, and maybe he would be mad at me for saying this, he and I always got along. I think he, at the time that he was a coach at Notre Dame, I played in 2012. I played for 1 year, and it was the team that we went to the national championship. We lost to Alabama in the national championship, and he became more authentic over time. I think he was not his authentic self at the time that we were playing with him or playing for him. And I think he's gotten much better. Again, outside looking in, he's gotten much better. And then when we sat down with him to interview him, it was super weird because like we know each other. He used to like yell at me because I was a walk on scout team defense, and he was like a offensive minded coach, so he was always with the offense. But we always had a good relationship, and honestly, I think if everyone watched that interview with Coach Kelly, they would like Coach Kelly because I think that was one of Coach Kelly's best interviews, and he is a polarizing coach. I would, not many people in the college football world are fans of Coach Kelly, but he's a good guy. He's a strong leader. He's got a strong personality, and I think he does things the right way. I think he does things with integrity, generally speaking. He's had a couple of tough moments throughout his career that just have been really brutal. I think he's addressed and talked about, but maybe he needs to talk about it a little bit more openly. But yeah, we're playing with Coach Kelly, being a walk-on of the Notre Dame football team. It was honestly one of the best experiences of my life. I loved it. We had a great year. We went to the national championship, so it was very fun. Generally, like throughout the year, we
Where
were
was
winning every
that?
game.
Where was that
It was at
game?
the Orange Bowl.
Okay.
That game wasn't fun. It was like over within the first 5 minutes, but we lost 42-14, and it was 28-0 at half.
Just
But
leave the
uh,
details out, right?
yeah, it was fun to be a part of Nick Saban's story. How about that? Yeah, the negative part of it. But um, Coach Kelly's football coaches are the CEO of the football team, so we reached out to him because we had a contact there, and he knows us, and he said yes, and it was great. I really enjoyed talking with him. I thought he was authentic in that interview.
It was a great interview, but something that stood out to me was when he said, like, in this season of my leadership, my role was different. It's like I'm more of the encourager, I'm more of the relational part. And it was just interesting because I'm like, okay, well, then even just speaking into as for the leaders listening, there's different seasons of your leadership and what your organization needs out of you. And I thought that he spoke into that really well with his own story.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes you need the leader to come in and take the ball, like a little bit more of a Michael Jordan. Like I'm taking the ball. It's the fourth quarter. Like I need to close this sale or I need to do this, whatever. Then you have leaders that are really good during crisis where it's, hey, I'm going to come in and kind of fix this up, clean this up. But then to your point, a little bit more nuanced is seasons within like say a year or within a period of time where now I'm going to be a little bit more of a coach of a leader, mentor, letting others lead. And then there's some that are they're just powerhouses within their organization. They lead with kind of like an iron fist. It works for their organization. And yeah, I mean, it's a fascinating subject, leadership, and different organizations require different leaders, different periods of time require different types of leaders. And the best leaders are able to, I think, be themselves, but also be the leader that's needed at that moment. Like, they're able to manipulate what they can do based on who they are, but, like, they're still remaining true to who they are, but they're able to change how they lead based on the situation that they're in, because they know that leadership does require, now I need to be a little, uh now I need to, let the team run and fly a little bit versus kinda maybe I need to micromanage a little bit more and kinda be a little bit more on top of them and push them a little harder. So, leadership's a fascinating thing for us. It's literally the inception of Executive House. What we want is, not to put this plug in, Derek, sorry, but Executive House is quite literally about showcasing credible business leaders, not just CEOs. Like, we have a series called the Tech Series that I do not host. A partner of ours, Marcelo DeSantis, hosts it. And we talk to CTOs, CIOs, digital officers. And the whole point of it is, like, technology is shaping our life like crazy. Let's talk about the people that are shaping it. Let's talk about their human side. I want to get to know some of the people and their values on the people who are leading these crazy innovations.
We need to make sure
Um,
we talk about the people before AI fully takes over, right?
exactly. We're actually interviewing the Microsoft AI CEO, the division of Microsoft. I'm really excited for that conversation because he's a very legitimate player in the AI game. But yeah, I want to ask that guy, how do you freaking feel about artificial intelligence potentially taking over
Yeah,
our
just
life? Is it
throw that
good?
out there and then just let them speak, right?
Yeah, I can't wait. That will be my first question. Is artificial intelligence going to be good for me in 10 years? Because social media, if I asked Mark Zuckerberg in 2010, he would say yes. And I think, like, 10 years later, I would say, Mark, I don't know if this is good
Yeah,
for us. Net positive. I don't know if this is good. I can make an argument that it's actually bad.
sure.
So,
I think many people
um,
can. Yeah,
right. So that's what we're all about. Is we want to talk to these credible business people, right? Like, big companies, influential companies. Goodyear Tire, that is an influential company. It's a global company. They are out of Akron, Ohio. Akron, Ohio would be in a problematic situation if Goodyear Tire went under. They have 70,000 employees, Goodyear, and it's globally. But Akron, Ohio, they have a major presence in. So these companies are very influential within their community and sometimes globally. And we should know more about these people, and we should learn from them and hear their stories. And on top of that, the CEOs, need to be honest, and they need to talk to us more, and they need to not just be about profits and business. Like, they need to be about humanity and making the world a better place. Are you selling customers a good thing? Are you delivering good results? Are you doing it the right way? That is what leadership is about. That is what leadership is about. It's not about just profits. Like, I get it. I'm not naive. If you're running a business, you need to make money. I get it. But you need to do it the right way. And that's what these CEOs need to do. So we're not, like, trying to actively humanize them. They need to humanize themselves. So that's what we do the show for. And from the most part, I would say, like, 75% of our CEOs seem like decent people, where they do try to do those things, where they want to perform, they want to run a profitable and good company, they want to make money, but they want to do things the right way. They want to have a good culture. They want the people to work for them to feel passionate, to be engaged at work. They want their customers to be happy. They want them to have good experiences. Like, that's what this world's all about. That's what working's all about. We're going to spend 40 to 70 hours a week working at a job that we hate? No way. That sucks. So, I want leaders to push goodness in business, not just profits.
yeah. Well, and that's so well said. And I think even just so much of the heart behind this podcast is it's not only what we do in leadership and in life, but it's how we go about it, right? It's like, you can, on paper, you can have two organizations that have, maybe there's certain percentage profitability and it's the exact same, but how they got there and the wake it left on the people who helped them get there. It's like there's so many nuances that go above and beyond the reports. And I love that you
Yeah.
highlight that and you talk about that and normalize these conversations. And so,
I'm going to give a little moment to give a little hot take here. And I'm going to apologize in advance to the people who work in communications at corporate in corporate environments. I, you know, we're talking a lot about CEOs right now, and generally speaking, with Executive House, it's not just about CEOs; it's about executives, right? It's about board members, it's about CEOs, it's about CIOs, it's about CMOs. That's what our goal is with Executive House, is to create a media brand and a media platform that not only tells executive stories, but we're going to create so much executive content where we could also learn from them. Think master class with certain topics. Say, if you're talking about finance, think of all the topics that you can learn from the CEO of Goldman Sachs, whatever. And then go down the list of it's endless, all the topics within the finance sector that you can talk about. So that's what we're building. That's Executive House. And on top of that, we have the shows like the CEO series, the tech series. But when we talk about CEOs or executives and maybe not being authentic or not being fully honest, say in an interview or when they're talking to their employees or whatever, I do think that the communications teams, generally speaking, get in the way. They are brand protectors. I understand what they're doing, but they get in the way. They try to say too much without saying anything at all. They try to fit everything in. They try to be overly positive, which is not realistic. Positive can be toxic if you're delusional and positive. I'm going to give an example after this. And they try to avoid tough subjects that, frankly, I think the best communications teams lean into it because, again, it will garner trust. It'll keep people engaged. And on top of that, you'll get feedback when you're honest about a problem. You'll get feedback that in real time that is very beneficial to how you approach the problem. And you have a realistic view of what the problem actually is versus like, oh, everything's fine. We're just going to keep pushing forward. All right. So I have an example and I'm going to call the company out. Zebra Technologies. They're about a $5 billion public company. They're not in the Fortune 500. I think they're around the Fortune 600. They're a little bit outside the Fortune 500. Influential company. Essentially, at Target, they have scanners, right? They have like the scanners for like the barcodes and everything. So they do a lot of like supply chain. They obviously do printing labels, scanners for all these big companies like Target and Amazon. They do that, right? You'll see it now. When I say Zebra Technologies, when you go to Walmart, you'll see Zebra Technologies at the scanning, at the self checkout or something. They were the company that fired 600 people like 3 months prior to our interview with them. This was in 2023, by the way, when we did the interview. The comms person didn't want to talk about it. She came up to me and said, I don't want to talk about the 600 the people. And I was like, well, I have to talk. Sorry. It's like a major thing that the CEO had to do it. Sorry. We're going to talk about it. And at the time, I was a little too lenient on the comms people. I was like, oh, now I can ask whatever I want. And I don't really care. I tell them like, this is what we're asking about. Like, yeah. So we asked the CEO about it and he kind of gave some ring around the rosy answer about, oh, this is why we had to do it. We had the strategy in place, the blah, blah, blah. And all you want to hear from something like that is like, it was
I'm sick at my stomach that you asked me that.
it was
Yeah.
a gut-wrenching decision. I'm sick in my stomach that I had to do it, but I had to do it. And then on top of that, I see this comms person on LinkedIn post about how they are a family, Zebra family. And it's like, you're a family, but you can't have a tough conversation about a difficult decision that you had to make. And by the way, many businesses have to make that decision and you're not going to talk about it in an interview. Shame on you. I mean, quite literally, shame on you. And if she sees this interview, I would gladly talk to her about this because I've wanted to talk to her about this because it's changed my approach. I learned so much from it because it's changed my approach on how I approach these communications people, but also about how I view communications with CEOs and how they're presenting themselves. And because that's not family. You're not treating them like family. That's fake. That's corporate talk. And if I worked at that company, I would say to myself, like, wait a minute, 5 of my friends just got fired in this division and you're not willing to talk about it? I want to know more about it from the CEO. You guys kind of brushed it off at the internal memo and then now you're brushing it off at this interview. Shame on you. Seriously, shame on you. And it's not that big of a deal either, but you're making it a big deal because now I don't trust you. So I think communications people get in the way because there's a little bit of that LinkedIn toxic positivity. Like, hey, everything's great. Look at me. Look at us. Look at what we're doing. Here's the nonprofit that we sponsored and don't, look the other way at the problems. And then they overprotect. And in 2025 and beyond, I think younger people are demanding more. I think they're demanding more authenticity. They're demanding more in media, like where they want to see you in the digital format, in video and podcast. They want to see more of their leaders. And I mentioned this earlier, they want to see them talk more about their opinions on certain things, so they know, who am I working for? What is the true values of the leadership of this organization? Yeah, we have our mission statement and our vision statement, but what is the true values of our organization? Is it secrecy and profits, or is it culture and people that lead to profits? Right. So I think communications, sometimes it's a bloated division within the marketing division. And I think honestly, they get in the way. The best ones, they know what they're doing. They know they let their leaders be who they are, and they lean into the leaders and who their personalities are, because that's what will make a good communication strategy, is leading into who those leaders are, what the company is, and not shying away from that. Um, and yeah, it's disappointing sometimes, to be honest, to work with some of the communications teams, because they're overprotective of the brands. Like, they just want to like paint over certain things, and you're thinking to yourself like, oh God, like, this is something that, to use that same example, like, this is something that happened, and you're unwilling to talk about it. And then at the same side of it, on LinkedIn, you're talking about family, and you're a 3,000 person company. They are not your family members, and you're talking to them like, it's insulting, honestly. So forgive me for the rant, but my hot take is that in 2025, communications teams really need to change their strategy, because overprotecting or being a brand protector is a poor communication strategy in 2025 and beyond.
Well, very well said. We don't normally have a hot take segment, but I'm glad I'm liking it. Maybe
That's a hot
maybe we
take
maybe we
segment.
need to start having one.
Yeah, yeah. I hope the Zebra Technologies person, she knows who she is. If she watches this, I hope I get an email from her, and I will gladly talk to her, because I've been wanting to talk about that, because a couple of reasons. It taught me a lot, so thank you to her. But then on top of that, um, it makes me not wanna interview people like that, because I don't think it's honest. I don't think it's honesty. I don't think it's an honest approach to being a business leader. I don't think it's an honest approach to communications. I don't think I'm not trying to be unrealistic. I know they're not able to be like, "Oh, that was terrible. Like, why'd we have to do that?" I understand how communications work, but it's not honest, and it's not honesty. And I just find it hilarious that certain people will post about like free speech and press and all that on one end of on their personal profiles, but then they try to say, don't talk about the layoffs to the guy that to the small publication that's interviewing them, me, in the interview with their boss. Like, it's unbelievable to me. It's not honest, and it's not an honest way to live. And it goes back to authenticity and being a leader, even if you're a communications leader, is like, that is exhausting, to put on a face day in and day out where you're not being your full self. And in the long run, that will be problematic for your mental health. You will not be as happy as you can possibly be. Your organization and those that you lead will not be as happy and as engaged as they will be, as they can be, excuse me. And that's a shame. That's a problem for the organization long term.
At the end of the day, we have got to be leading outwardly within alignment with our internal self. It's called congruence in psychology, right? It's like what I'm trying to create in this outside world lines up with who I am and what I'm about. And the more of us that are in congruence, the healthier our families are, ourselves are, our organizations are. But it's an active choice, because there's a lot of things positioning us, whether it's a comms team or whatever, that we like to have that facade up, or a certain image, or very sterile in what we say and don't say. And yeah, so I think all of us listening, uh, it's a great challenge. Your hot take challenges us all. It's like, how authentic are we being in our choices, in our
Yeah.
decisions, in our work lives?
LinkedIn is honestly a great case study for this, because LinkedIn kind of has morphed into this uh corporate social media
It's a corporate
platform.
Instagram
It's a corporate Instagram.
curated. Yeah,
And when I say the word corporate, my definition of that is a little bit of that toxic positivity, hey, we just made $1 billion in profit. Here's the pizza as a reward versus bonuses. Just kind of that professional mask that people sometimes have on. I think it's getting better. I do think it's getting better. You're starting to see more personality in LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn is a phenomenal platform because I think it's one that is based on professionalism and where we work and what we all have deep knowledge on, or a lot of us have deep knowledge on. Like, it should be a very positive and good social network. It has such potential to have like meaningful discussions and meaningful engagement, and we're all kind of walking on eggshells with it because it's our professional life. But if you're walking on eggshells at your job or as a leader, I think you're not doing the right thing. That should be a red flag right then and there that something's off. It's not in congruence, to your point.
William, plug anything. Like, how can people find you? How can people stay connected to you? And I know there's a lot of exciting things coming down.
Yeah, well, thank you, Derek. I think the main thing I want to plug is our media brand Executive House, and that is on YouTube. And if you search Executive House, you'll find us. We have quite a bit of videos on there, and it is the best library of executive content on the internet outside of Bloomberg and CNBC. But no, we've done 65 episodes with very prominent companies. I am confident that any person listening, if they go to our channel, you will recognize a lot of brands that we have interviewed and CEOs that we have interviewed. You will recognize them. And it is all about what we talked about on this podcast, which is, who is this person? What is this organization about? How do they do things? Let's learn a little bit more about them. Let's learn a little bit more about their business and industry. And that's what our interview series is about. And we will continue to do it. We have like 10 guests lined up until about April. And I would love for whoever's listening to go check it out, comment, tell me what you think. I'm on LinkedIn too. Happy to have a conversation with anyone about it. I love talking about this stuff.
Well, really, really enjoyed our conversation, William, and appreciate your time and your thoughtfulness and your experience that you bring to the conversation. And so I know it's going to benefit my listeners, and I'm going to plug everything in the show notes. But really, excited for people to hear and learn more about your work.
Yeah. Thanks, Derek. I appreciate you having me on, and this is a great podcast.
Thank you.